The space station called Vexal Prime was not a place for good people. It floated in the dark space between three star systems, far from any government or law. Pirates came here to sell their stolen goods. Criminals came here to hide. Enslavers came here to sell living beings like they were nothing more than cargo. Marcus Cole had never planned to visit this place. He was just an old man now, 68 years old with gray hairs and tired eyes. For 40 years, he had worked as a freight captain, moving cargo from one planet to another across the stars. It was honest work, hard work, and he had saved every credit he ever earned. Now he carried his entire fortune in a secure account linked to his wrist device. The number glowed whenever he checked it. 2.3 million galactic standards. It was enough money to buy a small house on Earth, to live quietly for the rest of his days, to finally rest after a lifetime among the stars. His transport home had been delayed by engine problems. The mechanic said it would take 6 hours to fix. So Marcus wandered through the station's market district, just looking, just passing time. He had no intention of buying anything. He had no intention of doing anything at all. The market was a maze of narrow corridors and open chambers, carved into the station's metal walls. Alien merchants sold strange foods and stranger technologies. Marcus walked past stalls selling weapons he did not understand, medicines he did not trust, and animals from worlds he had never visited. The air smelled like burning metal and alien spices. Then he heard the laughter. It came from a large chamber at the end of a corridor. The entrance was marked with symbols that Marcus recognized immediately. His stomach turned cold. It was a slave auction house. He should have walked away. He knew that. Slavery was illegal in human space, but out here, beyond any government's reach, it was common. Many alien species practiced it openly. Marcus had seen such places before during his years of travel. He had always looked away. He had always told himself it was not his business, not his problem, not something one old human could ever change. But something made him stop at the entrance. Something made him look inside. The chamber was filled with aliens of many species. They sat on benches arranged in a half circle, facing a raised platform made of black metal. On that platform stood a Vorgan auctioneer, a massive creature with gray skin, 6 arms, and a cluster of small eyes on its flat face. The Vorgan species were known throughout the galaxy as merchants and traders. They would sell anything to anyone, including people. The auctioneer was laughing. So were many of the buyers in the audience. Marcus pushed closer to see what was so funny. On the platform next to the auctioneer stood a girl. She was Cathari, a species Marcus had encountered a few times during his travels. The Cathari looked somewhat like humans, but their skin was pale blue, almost white, and their faces had 3 eyes instead of 2. Their most distinctive feature was the pattern of bioluminescent freckles that covered their skin. These freckles could glow in beautiful patterns, and healthy Cathari used them to express emotions and communicate. But this girl's freckles barely glowed at all. They flickered weakly like dying stars. She was small and thin, wearing torn gray clothes that hung loose on her body. Her middle eye, the third eye that sat in the center of her forehead, was clouded white. Blind. The auctioneer's voice boomed through the chamber. And here we have the final item of the day, a Cathari female, approximately 16 cycles old. But I must be honest with you, my friends. This one is defective. The audience laughed again. Her third eye is blind, the auctioneer continued, clearly enjoying himself. Her light patterns are weak and ugly. Medical scans show she is barren. She cannot produce offspring. She is too weak for labor, too damaged for breeding stock, and too plain for entertainment purposes. More laughter filled the chamber. So what is she good for? The auctioneer asked dramatically. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. She is worthless. The girl did not react. She stood perfectly still, her 2 working eyes staring at the floor. Her dim freckles flickered once, twice, then went almost completely dark. She had heard these words before, Marcus realized. She had heard them so many times that they no longer surprised her. She believed them. I will start the bidding at 1,000 credits, the auctioneer announced. 1,000 credits for this worthless creature. Anyone? Anyone at all? Silence. No? Then 500 credits. Surely someone will pay 500 credits. More silence. A few aliens in the audience whispered and pointed at the girl, making cruel jokes. 200 credits, the auctioneer shouted, his voice losing its cheerful tone. 200 credits. This is my final offer. If no one bids, I will sell her to the organ harvesters for scrap value. Marcus felt something cold grip his heart. Organ harvesters. They would cut her apart while she was still alive, selling her organs piece by piece to the highest bidder. It was a horrible death, even for someone the galaxy considered worthless. The girl's hands began to tremble. It was the first sign of fear she had shown, but she did not cry. She did not beg. She simply stood there, waiting to die, holding on to the last small piece of dignity she had left. Marcus looked at her, and something broke inside him. He thought about his fortune, his 2.3 million credits, his quiet retirement on Earth, his peaceful life. He thought about all the years he had worked, all the sacrifices he had made, all the dreams he had saved for. Then he thought about this girl, this child, standing alone on a platform, waiting to be cut apart because no one in the entire galaxy thought she was worth saving. The auctioneer raised his hand. No bids. Then she goes to the harvesters. Take her away. Two guards moved toward the platform, and Marcus Cole, the tired old freight captain who had never done anything brave in his entire life, opened his mouth and spoke. Wait. The word was quiet, but somehow it cut through the noise of the chamber. The guard stopped. The auctioneer turned his many eyes toward the human standing near the back of the room. I'll buy her, Marcus said. The chamber went silent. Every alien in the room turned to look at him. The girl on the platform slowly raised her head, her two working eyes finding his face for the first time. Marcus stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea what he was doing. He only knew that he could not walk away. The Vorgan auctioneer stared at Marcus with his cluster of small eyes. For a long moment, nobody in the chamber moved or spoke. The silence was so complete that Marcus could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. You? The auctioneer finally said. A human? You want to buy this worthless thing? Marcus walked forward through the crowd. The aliens parted to let him pass, their faces showing confusion and curiosity. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most species knew little about them except that they came from a small planet called Earth and had only recently begun exploring the stars. That is what I said, Marcus replied. His voice was calm even though his hands were shaking inside his pockets. I want to buy her. The auctioneer's wide mouth stretched into an ugly smile. Very well, human. How much do you offer? 200 credits? 300? I warn you, the organ harvesters have already offered 150, so you must beat their price. Marcus stopped at the edge of the platform. He looked up at the girl. She was staring at him with her two working eyes, her expression frozen somewhere between fear and confusion. Her dim freckles flickered weakly, casting almost no light at all. He pulled up his wrist device and accessed his account. The number glowed in the air above his arm, visible to everyone in the chamber. 2,300,000 galactic standards. Everything, Marcus said. I offer everything, my entire fortune. 2.3 million galactic standards. For her. The chamber exploded into chaos. Aliens shouted and argued. Some laughed. Some demanded to know if this was some kind of trick. The auctioneer's many eyes blinked rapidly, unable to process what he was hearing. 2 million credits? For a defective slave that nobody wanted? For a creature he had been ready to sell for scrap? You are joking, the auctioneer said. This must be a joke. It is not a joke, Marcus replied. Transfer the ownership documents. The money is yours. The auctioneer hesitated for only a moment. Greed was stronger than confusion. His 6 arms moved quickly over his control panel, preparing the transfer. Within seconds, the documents appeared on Marcus's wrist device. He pressed his thumb to the screen, confirming the purchase. The money vanished from his account. 40 years of work, 40 years of saving, gone in an instant. The auctioneer looked at his own device and made a sound of pure joy. He had just made more money from one worthless slave than he usually made in an entire year. He did not understand why the human had done this, but he did not care. She is yours, the auctioneer announced. Take her, and go." The guards removed the metal collar from the girl's neck, the device that marked her as property. She stumbled forward, nearly falling off the platform. Marcus caught her arm gently and helped her down to the floor. She was even smaller up close. The top of her head barely reached his chest. She weighed almost nothing, as if she had not eaten properly in a very long time. The other aliens in the chamber stared at them as they walked toward the exit. Marcus could hear their whispers following him like shadows. "The human is insane. 2 million credits? For that broken thing? Humans are fools, everyone knows this. He will regret this. He will regret this forever." Marcus ignored them all. He kept his hand on the girl's arm, guiding her through the crowd, through the corridor, away from the auction house. He did not stop walking until they reached a quiet corner of the station where no one could see them. Only then did he let go of her arm. The girl stood perfectly still, her head bowed, her thin body trembling. Her dim freckles pulsed with a rhythm that Marcus did not understand. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she looked up at him with her two working eyes. "Why?" she asked. Her voice was soft and rough at the same time, like she had not used it much. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with confusion and fear and something else, something like hope, but afraid to believe in itself. Marcus did not have a grand answer. He had not planned this. He had not thought about it. He had simply acted, following an instinct he could not explain. "Because no one should be worthless," he said. The girl stared at him. Her clouded third eye seemed to look through him, even though it could not see. Her freckles flickered again, a little brighter this time. "I do not understand," she said. "I am defective. I am broken. I have no value. The Cathari Council said so when I was born. They wanted to kill me, but my mother hid me. She gave me to traders when I was small. I have been sold many times. No one has ever wanted me. No one has ever paid more than a few hundred credits for me. And you," she paused, struggling with the words. "You gave everything. Why?" Marcus looked at her thin face, her trembling hands, her dim freckles that barely had the strength to glow. He thought about his own life, his quiet years, his lonely work, his fortune that he had saved for a future he never really planned. "What is your name?" he asked. The question seemed to surprise her. "Lyris," she said quietly. "My mother called me Lyris." "Lyris." Marcus nodded. "My name is Marcus, and I gave everything because—" He paused, trying to find the right words. "Because where I come from, we believe that every person has value, not because of what they can do, not because of how strong or smart or beautiful they are, but simply because they exist, because they are alive, because they are someone." Lyris shook her head slowly. "That is not how the galaxy works." "Maybe not," Marcus agreed, "but that is how humans work. At least that is how we try to work. We do not always succeed, but we try." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small food bar, emergency rations he always carried from his years as a freight captain. He held it out to her. "When did you last eat?" he asked. Lyris looked at the food bar like it was a strange and dangerous thing. Slowly, carefully, she took it from his hand. She ate it in small bites, as if she expected someone to take it away from her at any moment. Marcus watched her eat, and he felt something shift inside his chest. He had just given away everything he owned. He had no money. He had no plan. He had no idea how he would get home or what he would do when he got there. But somehow in that moment, he did not care. He had done something that mattered. For the first time in his long and quiet life, he had done something that truly mattered, and that he realized was worth more than any fortune. "Come," he said to Lyris when she finished eating. "We need to find a way off the station." "Where will we go?" she asked. Marcus thought about the question. He had no home now, no savings, no future waiting for him on Earth. But he looked at this girl, this broken, discarded, worthless girl, and he made a decision. "Home," he said. "I am taking you home." Lyris's freckles flickered with a new light. It was still dim, still weak, but it was there, and that was enough. Finding a way off Vexile Prime was not easy. Marcus had no money left, and passenger tickets to human space were expensive. For 3 days, He and Lyra stayed in the station's cheapest sleeping quarters, a tiny metal room with two narrow beds and no windows. Marcus used the last few credits in his emergency fund to buy food for them both. Lyris barely spoke during those 3 days. She watched Marcus constantly with her two working eyes, waiting for him to change his mind, waiting for him to demand something from her, waiting for the kindness to reveal itself as a lie. She had learned from a hard life that nothing came for free. Every gift had a price. Every smile hid teeth. But Marcus asked nothing from her. He shared his food equally. He gave her the better bed. He talked to her in a calm and gentle voice, never raising it, never showing anger. When she flinched away from sudden movements, he moved more slowly. When she refused to meet his eyes, he did not force her. On the fourth day, Marcus found them passage on a cargo freighter called the Iron Promise. The captain was a human woman named Sarah Chen, who had known Marcus years ago when they both worked the same shipping routes. When Marcus explained his situation, no money, no resources, but a desperate need to reach Earth, Captain Chen looked at Lyris with curious eyes. "So this is the girl everyone is talking about," Chen said. "The worthless slave that the crazy human bought for 2 million credits." Marcus nodded. "Her name is Lyris." Chen studied the Cathari girl for a long moment. Lyris stood with her head down, her dim freckles barely visible, her body tense and ready to run. "Worthless," Chen repeated thoughtfully. Then she smiled. "Funny, she does not look worthless to me. She looks like someone who has survived things that would break most people. That takes strength." Lyris's head lifted slightly. Her freckles flickered with surprise. Chen turned back to Marcus. "I will give you both passage to Earth, but you will work for it. I need hands in the cargo bay. It is hard labor, but fair." "Thank you," Marcus said, and he meant it with all his heart. The Iron Promise departed Vexal Prime that same day. The journey to human space would take 6 weeks, a long time to travel between the stars. But the freighter was old and its engines were slow. Marcus and Lyris worked together in the cargo bay. The work was indeed hard. They moved heavy containers, checked inventory lists, and cleaned the massive storage areas. Marcus's old body ached every night, but he never complained. Lyris worked beside him in silence, her small hands surprisingly strong, her movements quick and careful. The freighter's crew was a mix of humans and aliens. Most of them were kind to Lyris, or at least polite. A few made cruel jokes when they thought she could not hear. But whenever this happened, Marcus would step between them, his tired eyes suddenly hard and cold. "She is with me," he would say quietly, "and you will treat her with respect." Nobody argued with him. There was something in his voice that warned against it. In the evenings after the work was done, Marcus and Lyris sat together in the small common room. Marcus taught her to play card games, simple games that humans had played for hundreds of years. At first, Lyris did not understand why anyone would play games that had no purpose. Among the Cathari, every activity had to produce something useful. Play was considered a waste of time. "The purpose is to enjoy yourself," Marcus explained, "to have fun, to relax." "Fun," Lyris repeated, like she was learning a new word in a foreign language. Perhaps she was. As the weeks passed, Marcus told her stories about Earth. He told her about the blue oceans and the green forests. He told her about cities full of millions of people and villages where everyone knew each other's names. He told her about the history of humanity, the wars they had fought, the mistakes they had made, the lessons they had learned. "Humans have done terrible things," Marcus admitted one evening. "We have killed each other. We have enslaved each other. We have been cruel and selfish and blind." Lyris nodded. This was what she expected. This was how all species behaved. "But we have also done beautiful things," Marcus continued. "We have built hospitals for the sick, schools for the young, homes for those who have no family. We have created laws that say every person has rights, no matter how weak or poor or different they are. We believe that all people are born equal." Lyris shook her head slowly. "That is not logical. People are not equal. Some are strong, some are weak, some are useful, some are not." "Maybe," Marcus agreed, "but we believe that all people deserve to be treated equally. We believe that even the weak, even the sick, even the broken, they deserve kindness. They deserve protection. They deserve a chance to live." Lyris was quiet for a long time. Her freckles pulsed with a soft, uncertain rhythm. Among the Kithari, she finally said, defective children are killed at birth. It is considered merciful. They will never have to suffer. They will never be a burden to others. It is the logical choice. Marcus felt his heart ache. Is that what they told you? That you should have been killed? Lyris nodded. My mother broke the law by hiding me. She was punished for it. I do not know what happened to her after she gave me away. Marcus reached out and gently touched her hand. Lyris flinched, but she did not pull away. Lyris, he said softly, I am glad you were not killed. I am glad you are here. Her freckles flickered brighter than he had ever seen them. A single tear rolled down her pale blue cheek. I do not understand you, she whispered. I do not understand humans. Marcus smiled. You have time to learn. We have a long journey ahead. In the final week of the journey, something changed in Lyris. She began to speak more often. She asked questions about Earth, about human customs, about the strange beliefs that Marcus had described. She even laughed once, a small, quiet sound that surprised them both. Her freckles began to glow more steadily. The patterns were still dim compared to a healthy Kithari, but they were no longer the dying flickers of a broken spirit. They were the soft glow of someone beginning to heal. On the last day before they reached Earth, Lyris came to Marcus with a question. What will happen to me when we arrive? She asked. I have no money. I have no skills. I cannot work. I am still worthless. Marcus shook his head firmly. You are not worthless. You never were. And when we arrive, you will stay with me. I have friends who will help us. I have a community that will welcome you. You will have a home, Lyris. A real home. For as long as you want it. Lyris stared at him with her two working eyes. Her clouded third eye seemed to shimmer in the ship's artificial light. Why? She asked again. It was the same question she had asked on Vexile Prime, but this time her voice was different. It was not the voice of someone who expected cruelty. It was the voice of someone trying to understand love. Marcus thought about the question carefully. Because that is what family does, he said. And for the first time since the day she was born, Lyris smiled. Her freckles blazed like a constellation of tiny stars. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within days of the auction on Vexile Prime, the story of the crazy human had spread to 100 worlds. Communication networks carried it from station to station, planet to planet, species to species. Everyone had an opinion about what Marcus Cole had done. Most aliens thought he was insane. A Dominion ambassador gave an official statement calling the purchase a perfect example of human irrationality. A famous Vorgan economist calculated that Marcus had overpaid by a factor of 11,500. The Cathari Council released a cold announcement reminding the galaxy that the girl was defective and had been correctly classified as worthless by their own experts. But among humans, the reaction was very different. A small news station on Earth's moon colony was the first to pick up the story. Within hours, it had spread to every human world. People watched the security footage from the auction house. Marcus stepping forward, offering everything he had, taking the trembling girl by the hand. They read interviews with the crew of the Iron Promise. They saw pictures of Lyris with her dim freckles and her clouded third eye. And something happened that no alien species could have predicted. Humanity responded. The first donation arrived before Marcus and Lyris even reached Earth. A veterans organization learned that Marcus had served briefly in the human fleet before becoming a freight captain. They paid off his old apartment in New Seattle and announced that a hero should always have a home. Then came more help. A restaurant chain offered lifetime free meals. A clothing company sent packages of new clothes. A medical center volunteered to examine Lyris and treat any health problems at no cost. A university invited her to study once she learned to read and write in human languages. The donations kept coming. Thousands of people sent money, not to repay Marcus, but to help him start a new life. Millions more shared his story, writing comments about how it had moved them, how it had reminded them of what it meant to be human. Marcus was overwhelmed. He sat in his small apartment, surrounded by messages and gifts and offers of help, and he did not know what to say. He had not done this for attention. He had not done it for praise. He had simply done what felt right. But the galaxy was paying attention now, and it had more questions than ever. 3 weeks after arriving on Earth, Marcus received an invitation to speak at the Galactic Council. The council was the closest thing the galaxy had to a central government, a gathering of ambassadors from over 200 species who met to discuss trade in territory and war. They wanted to understand humans better. They wanted to understand why Marcus had done what he did. Marcus did not want to go. He was a simple man, a retired freight captain, not a diplomat or a politician. But the human ambassador, a woman named Dr. Amara Okonkwo, convinced him that this was important. The galaxy does not understand us, she explained. They see us as strange and unpredictable. They calculate value the way they always have, in strength and productivity and profit. They cannot comprehend what you did, Marcus, and that confusion makes them afraid. What do you want me to say? Marcus asked. Dr. Okonkwo smiled. Just tell them the truth. Tell them why. So Marcus went to the Galactic Council. He stood before ambassadors from species he had never heard of, creatures of every shape and size, beings who ruled empires that spanned star systems. And he was not afraid. He told them about Vexile Prime. He told them about the auction. He told them about Lyris standing on the platform, waiting to die, her freckles barely glowing. He told them about the choice he had made. I gave everything I had, Marcus said, his voice steady, and I would do it again. Not because she was valuable by your standards, but because she was a person, because she was alive, because she deserved a chance that the galaxy never gave her. The Dominion ambassador, a tall creature with 4 arms and silver skin, rose to speak. This is sentimentality, he declared. It is illogical. The resources you spent on this defective individual could have been used for countless productive purposes. You wasted them on nothing. Marcus looked at the ambassador calmly. With respect, Ambassador, I disagree. Among humans, we have a saying. You can measure a society by how it treats its weakest members. Not by its wealth, not by its weapons, but by its compassion. The chamber fell silent. Dr. Okonkwo stepped forward to stand beside Marcus. The ambassador asked why humans act this way, she said. It is a fair question. We are a young species. We have much to learn from the older civilizations of this galaxy. But perhaps there is something we can teach as well. She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Images appeared. Human hospitals caring for the sick, human schools teaching the disabled, human shelters protecting the homeless, pictures of doctors working in war zones, volunteers feeding the hungry, ordinary people helping strangers they would never see again. Humans believe in something we call inherent dignity, Dr. Okonkwo explained. We believe that every person, no matter how weak, how broken, how worthless others consider them, has value simply because they exist. This is not logical by your calculations, but it is the foundation of everything we build. She turned back to the council. You calculate value in what a being can produce. We calculate it in what a being is. This is the difference between us. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, murmurs began to spread among the ambassadors. Some were skeptical, some were confused. But a few, just a few, looked at the images on the display with something new in their eyes. Something like wonder. Back on Earth, Lyris watched the broadcast of the council meeting. She sat in Marcus's apartment, her freckles glowing steadily now, her 2 working eyes fixed on the screen. She saw Marcus standing before the most powerful beings in the galaxy, speaking about her, defending her, declaring that she had worth. She thought about everything she had been told since she was born, that she was defective, that she was broken, that she was nothing. And then she thought about everything she had learned since Marcus found her, that she was alive, that she was someone, that she mattered. The broadcast ended. Lyra stood up slowly and walked to the window. Outside, the human city stretched in every direction. Buildings and streets and lights and life. Millions of people living together, caring for each other, believing in each other. She looked up at the stars above the city lights. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was still watching, still judging, still trying to understand. But Lyris understood now. She was not worthless. She never had been. And for the first time in her life, She believed it. 10 years had passed since the auction on Vexal Prime. The galaxy had changed. Not quickly. Change never comes quickly to ancient civilizations, but steadily, like water wearing away stone. And at the center of that change stood a woman who had once been called worthless. Lyra stood at the podium of the Galactic Humanitarian Council, an organization that had not existed a decade ago. The chamber was vast, filled with representatives from over 50 species. Behind her, arranged in careful rows, sat thousands of beings who had been rescued from slavery, from abandonment, from death. They were the broken ones, the defective ones, the worthless ones, and they were alive because of what one human had started. She was 26 now, no longer a frightened girl with dim freckles and a clouded eye. Her skin still held its pale blue color, and her third eye was still blind. These things would never change. But her freckles blazed with light, bright patterns that shifted and danced as she spoke. She had learned that her light was not weak. It had only needed a reason to shine. 10 years ago, she began, her voice clear and strong, I stood on an auction platform, waiting to be sold to organ harvesters. No one in the galaxy wanted me. I was defective. I was broken. I was worth less than the cheapest spare parts. The chamber was completely silent. Then a human walked into the auction house. He was not rich. He was not powerful. He was just an old man with tired eyes and a good heart. And he looked at me, at this worthless creature, and he saw something that no one else had ever seen. Lyris paused, letting the words settle. He saw a person. In the audience, Marcus Cole sat in a simple chair near the back. He was 78 years old now, his hair completely white, his body slower than it used to be. He had never regained his fortune. He lived in a small apartment, survived on a modest pension, and spent most of his days reading books and watching the stars. But he was not alone anymore. Lyris visited him every week. She brought him food from restaurants he could never afford and told him stories about her work. She introduced him to the beings she had saved, children and adults from dozens of species, all of them carrying wounds that the galaxy had deemed too broken to heal. He had become a grandfather to thousands. The humans have a belief, Lyris continued from the podium. They call it inherent dignity. They believe that every person, no matter how weak or damaged or different, has value simply because they exist. When I first heard this, I did not understand. It seemed illogical, wasteful, foolish. She looked out across the chamber, meeting the eyes of ambassadors who had once mocked the idea. But I have learned that logic is not the only truth. Love is also true. Compassion is also true. The belief that no one is worthless, this is also true. Behind her, a massive display activated. It showed images from across the galaxy, the changes that had happened in the past decade. The Cathari matriarchy had officially apologized for their culling practices and passed new laws protecting defective children. The Vorgan slave markets faced boycotts from over 30 species and had lost most of their business. 12 civilizations had adopted human-inspired dignity laws that protected the weak and the disabled. And the Galactic Humanitarian Council, which Lyris had founded 5 years ago, had rescued over 200,000 beings from slavery and abandonment. They ask me why humans are different, Lyris said. They ask me what makes humanity special, and I tell them the truth. She turned slightly, looking directly at Marcus in the audience. The old man's eyes were wet with tears he did not try to hide. Humans are not the strongest species. They are not the smartest or the oldest. They cannot live for thousands of years like the Vrenthi. They cannot calculate faster than computers like the Kothal. They are small and fragile and brief. Her freckles blazed like a field of stars. But they believe in something that the galaxy had forgotten. They believe that strength is measured not by what you can take, but by what you choose to give. They believe that the true worth of a civilization is not in its conquests, but in its kindness. They believe that the worthless among us are worth everything. She pointed at Marcus. That man gave everything he had for someone he was told was nothing. He did not ask for thanks. He did not ask for fame. He simply saw a person who needed help, and he helped her. And in doing so, he reminded the galaxy of a truth we had all forgotten. The chamber was silent. Representatives from species that had practiced slavery for millennia sat frozen, their minds struggling with ideas that had never occurred to them before. "We are not worthless," Lyris declared. "None of us are worthless. The child born different is not worthless. The worker too old to labor is not worthless. The soldier wounded in battle is not worthless. Every being in this chamber, every being in this galaxy, has value, and it is time we acted like it." She stepped back from the podium. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, someone began to clap. It was a human ambassador rising to her feet. Others followed, more humans at first. Then aliens from species that had joined the humanitarian movement. The applause spread like a wave, growing louder and louder until the entire chamber was on its feet. Lyris looked out at the standing crowd, at the thousands of beings who had been saved, at the ambassadors who were finally beginning to understand. Then she looked at Marcus. The old man was standing too, his hands pressed together, his eyes shining with pride and joy. He was poor. He was tired. He had never regained the fortune he had given away. But he was smiling the biggest smile Lyris had ever seen. After the assembly ended, Lyris made her way through the crowd to where Marcus was waiting. Beings from a dozen species stopped her to shake her hand or thank her for her speech. She accepted their gratitude gracefully, but her eyes never left the old man standing by the door. When she finally reached him, she did not speak. She simply wrapped her arms around him and held him tight. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus hugged her back, his old arms trembling but strong. "You did this," he said. "All of this. You changed the galaxy, Lyris. Not me." Lyris pulled back and looked at him with her two bright eyes and her clouded third eye. "You saved me first," she said. "Everything else grew from that." They walked out of the chamber together, the old human and the Cathari woman who had once been worth nothing. Outside, the station's observation windows showed a field of stars stretching into infinity. Countless worlds, countless species, countless beings waiting to be seen, waiting to be valued, waiting to matter. "What do we do now?" Marcus asked. Lyris looked at the stars and smiled. "We keep going," she said. "There are more worthless ones out there, more people who need someone to see them, more lives waiting to be saved." She took his hand gently. "We still have work to do." Marcus looked at the young woman beside him, the girl he had bought for everything he owned, the person who had become his daughter in every way that mattered. "Then let us get to work," he said. And together they walked forward into the light of a galaxy that was finally learning what it meant to be human. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter.